we would go and do petty crime, so as to fend for our addiction. So we used to rob the neighborhood of little things, and we would take things like sheets from the line. We would steal like things that had remained in vehicles in estates here in Kibra. Still, I had the habit of buying marijuana and coming with it back to school to sell marijuana to other students. We would get out of school and go to Kisii town. So there we would rob people. There is something they called ngeta. So we used to rob people there. And after we got out of the discotheques, we would rob the streets of Nairobi from something like 3 till something like 5 before it becomes morning. Brought to the border of Uganda by police officers, and they told me that if I was not a student, they would have killed me there in Uganda. So
hi guys, this is Agma Swift Media. Leo tuko mtaa ya Kibra na tuko na a very special guest. Our guest amekuwa in crime, amekuwa in drug addiction. He has a very inspiring story. Guys, remember to like, share, comment and subscribe.
Hello guys, my name is Felix Kokonya. I am chairman and founder of an organization called Akilibomba Community-Based Organization, based in Kibra, and our organization deals in mental health awareness and advocacy. First of all, I will tell you a little bit about my life story. So I was born and bred in Kibra 39 years ago, and I went to school at a very tender age at Olympic Primary School. At the time, our school was doing well and was the best school actually in Kenya. So at school, I made a lot of friends. But then when I was in school, I developed a habit, and I entered into a group due to peer pressure, a group of young boys who would use marijuana. So I began using marijuana at a very tender age. At the age of 13, I was a smoker of marijuana, and I used marijuana for some times. Then I graduated to pills. I think the same year, while I was 13 years old, there is a guy who taught me how to take these prescription pills, and most of them were sedatives. These of the clozapams, we have pills of Rohypnol, and for some time while in primary school, we would go and do petty crime, so as to fend for our addiction. So we used to rob the neighborhood of little things, and we would take things like sheets from the line. We would steal like things that had remained in vehicles in estates here in Kibra. And for a while, no one had known that I was an addict. My neighbors would see me using. I would deny having used crime when they told my parents. And my parents also did not find out that I was an addict until the age of 16, 17. So after primary school, I went to a secondary school in Sengani. It's called Sengani High School in Tala. And at Sengani High School, I met another group of young boys who had come from Nairobi. And there now, we began stealing books from other students. And we would go outside the school and buy marijuana, come and make them and fold them together and sell to other students. Now, while at Sengani, now I began fighting, and when I came back home during the holiday periods, I would go to a club here at Woodley, and I began training boxing. So after training boxing, I went back to school, and I fought a lot of boys, and it got me into trouble. I was suspended once when I was in the second term of Form 2. Then I went back to school. And when I went back to school in the second term, we did a strike at school. So after the strike, I was sent away from school while at Form 1. So after being sent away from school, I came back home to Kibra. And my father was working outside the country. He was working in Rwanda at that time. So what happened is that I got now to another advanced group, which the people we were with in the gang were older than me. So we used to make marijuana, and then the peddler would sell them and give us something little. And for a while, I did not go to school until the next year. So when it reached the next year, my dad came and spoke to someone from Kisii land. And that person got a school which was called Mosocho Academy. So I went to that school that next year. Unfortunately, I got to go to Form 2. So when I was in Form 2 at that school, I decided to be a cool boy and try to go back to my books, because I knew that I was sent away from the other school. So I tried to relax and try to go back to being the good character. But then unfortunately, the same character popped up, because again I got a wrong group there. And this time I met guys from Nairobi, and most of them were from the eastlands of Nairobi. Umoja, Uruma, Dandora. And there now I began to learn other habits. So we would get out of school and go to Kisii town. So there we would rob people. There is something they called ngeta. So we used to rob people there, and we would go back to school. So in the weekends, we used to go rob people of their money. We would come back to school and steal books, dictionaries, then go and sell them to town. And still I had the habit of buying marijuana and coming with it back to school to sell marijuana to other students. So it got me into trouble a couple of times, and I was sent away, first of all through suspension, but then I went back to school. And after a while, we also planned a strike, and this time I was the one who planned that strike. So after planning of the strike, we burnt the school, and as usual, I was the main suspect, because at that time I had characters which were not good. So I was sent away from Mosocho Academy, and after being sent away, now I came back home. So my parents were tired of my same old habit, and for me, I was still blaming other people, and I was still in denial that I had a character defect. So at that particular time, my dad, I told you, was working outside the country. So my dad was mad, and he said that he thinks that it would be better if I did not go to school, so that I learn and know that other people of my age are in school. So he left me at home. Now while he left me at home, I would get out of our house and I would go to the stage, and I began touting with those matatu conductors. So they would give me, right now they call it kamagera, but they would give me, at that time we used to call it squaddy. So I would go for 1, 2 squaddies, but then I had a habit of stealing, and I would steal from from the money that I've got from the passengers. They would give me money, and I would hide some of the money in my socks. I remember I even decided one time to go and change coins of 1 shilling, 1 shilling. Long time ago, we used to have those coins of 1 bob, 1 bob. So while we would go through Valley Road, I would drop them from the window and I would tell the driver that pesa yote imepotea, pesa yote imeanguka. But then that got me into trouble with them, and many of them did not want me to work with them. So from there, I began again now doing geta in our area of Kibra. And for a while, I would go to Kilimani police station like every other weekend. I would find myself in Central police station. Now, some of the guys that we were with in Mosocho were also sent away. So we would converge together and go to town, to discotheques. And after we got out of the discotheques, we would rob the streets of Nairobi from something like 3 till something like 5 before it becomes morning. And it became a habit because now we had money to buy drinks, now we had money to chew mogoka, now we had money to smoke marijuana. But then we now began to realize that we would not rob people in town using crude weapons. So we had to adjust, and now I entered into a gun-toting group of young guys, and that was something like 1997. So from 98, sorry. So from 98, 99, 2000, I was in that gang, and I was deep into crime. But then at that time, I was wanted. So my dad and my mom decided to take me outside the country. So I went to study again in Uganda, and this time I had lost some of my friends through crime. Many of them were shot down, others were killed in the streets of Kibra by mob justice. So I started speaking to myself, and I thought that my fate will be either death by being shot down, or either I would go to prison. So I thought about it, and I decided to go to Uganda. So in Uganda I was taken to Form 3. And while in Uganda, I decided to stop using marijuana and stop crime. But then, having not worked on my character defects, in Uganda now there are plants of marijuana everywhere. And around our school we had plants of marijuana which had matured. And my old habits, they say old habits die hard. They caught up with me, and again I began now smoking marijuana. But then there now, I would not buy marijuana, but I would just find them free. Kama kuvuna, in Kiswahili they say kuvuna. So I would smoke a lot of marijuana, and actually it got a tide on me because the environment in Uganda is very hot. And having smoked a lot of marijuana, now there was a certain kind of disorder that was in me. I was very violent. I remember I became violent that even the headmaster at one school called Holy Cross Lakeview, the headmaster was afraid of me. He was Kenyan, but then he was afraid of me because I fought teachers, I fought fellow students, and I had even sent people to tell him that I can even beat him up. Now the headmaster feared for his life, but then after 2 terms, the headmaster called my parent without my notice. So while we were going to finish the term, the headmaster let me do my exam, and while they were giving the report forms, I was told my parent was waiting for me in the office, my mother. So they sent me away with my mother, but then the good thing is that they gave me the report form. So after coming from school, I went to another area of Uganda. That time I was in Jinja. So we went to a town called Tororo, and I got a school there called Tororo College. And at Tororo College, these people were happy with my results. But then they did not know my character, and they were happy with the school that I was in. That Holy Cross Lakeview was a Catholic school and it had a good reputation. So they took me into Tororo College, not knowing that they had taken in a gangster. I remember the first day I went to school, I went with cigarettes and marijuana. And there was this bully that came to me, and he was trying to bully me up. But then we fought with him and I beat him up, and other people were happy while I was going to the DH for supper that boy was bullying them every other time. So at least they had found someone who had beaten them. So who had beaten him. So I studied at Tororo College, and I found that there were characters of people who we had rebels from the north, people from Konyi. We had very queer characters from Tanzania and Kenya. Now we had a gang of people who the rebels had come with guns. They had come there with G3s, AK-47s in their boxes. So we would get out of school and go and rob people at the border. Kenya's border in Malaba and Busia. It's just 7 kilometers from Tororo town. So again there, we advanced more in crime. And I remember I was sent out of that school. And I was brought to the border of Uganda by police officers. And they told me that if I was not a student, they would have killed me there in Uganda. So after all this, now I knew that my life was unmanageable. Because here school, I would not go to school well. And I realized that I had a problem in me. So my father took me to a rehabilitation center. This is now the year 2000. I went to a rehabilitation center in Mombasa. It was called Sinam Rehabilitation, someplace in Kisauni. So there we had drug addicts ranging from heroin addicts who used to inject. They used to smoke heroin in marijuana. So there I was taken for marijuana and alcohol, so that I would beat the habit of using these petty drugs. But then I met with other people who were using harder drugs. And at that time, now for me I was a trustee there, because they knew that I did not know the locality well. And they would send me to go and buy chips and other items for these addicts. But then when they would send me outside, these addicts would send me to other people to go and get drugs from them. So I went outside, and being a cheeky character, I would come back with heroin, and that is where I learned how to use heroin. So me, first of all, I would smoke in marijuana. That's a cocktail of heroin and marijuana. And then we would do foils, make a pipe from a foil, and then we would put heroin on the foil, and we would burn it with a tissue, following it up and down. Tulikuwa tunaita kupanda Valley Road na kurudi, kupanda mlima na kurudi. And I got out of that rehabilitation center an addict again. I had gone for character development, but I got out an addict. So while I got out an addict, I came back now to Nairobi. And now I got to get members who are using heroin here in the streets of Majengo. Now these people became my good friends, and we used to use with them heroin. So I became an addict, and I became hooked to heroin. I began with brown sugar, but after a while I graduated to the white stuff. And now I got to know that the drug was being sold in Mathare, the drug was sold in town, the drug was sold in Kawangware. And now I got to know more friends as I would use heroin. And the majority of my friends died along the way. So I realized that I was in the wrong place. Now I stopped again using heroin after going to a rehabilitation again. And this time I went to a rehabilitation in Eldoret. So after going to the rehabilitation in Eldoret for 3 months, I came back clean. And now I had gone to 2 rehabilitation centers. Now I had learned the 12 steps and I had known them theoretically. But the problem is that I did not work on the 12 steps practically. So when I came back, again I went back to drugs. There is something we call the big lie. And we lie to ourselves that when we do a cross addiction to a less harmful drug, that you would be better than the situation you were in long time. So I went back to using miraa and alcohol, and I would go to town to dance. Now in town, I met the same old friends that we used to rob with. And some of them, we had been in short-term jails with them in industrial area. And so the character of robbing, I got back into it. So we robbed people for a while, and I would tell you that majority of my friends died while robbing people. I have buried like more than 2,000 of them across Nairobi. And a majority of them right now are in jail. So there is a time that I became wanted. And I knew that right now it is either death by the bullet or death by mob justice, because the people in my locality had known that I am a criminal and I am wanted. So I would go for exile most of the time. But then I did not have peace wherever I was, because I knew that any time the law will catch up with me, and I would end up dead. So I decided, and I went to my dad and told him that this time I am serious and I need to work on my character defects. So this time he took me far from this place and he took me to Kampala, to a rehabilitation center. And he told me, I remember his words very well, that this is the last time now I am taking you to a rehabilitation center. So I went to a rehab in Kampala, and I was there for 3 months. I remember very well this time I tried very much to work on the 12 steps. And I would tell you that I came back, and for 2-3 years I was clean. But then, having come to the same environment, again I relapsed. I began using alcohol, I got back to using marijuana, and I was so depressed that after a while, like 2-3 years, now I hit rock bottom, because I'd gone back to heroin, and this time I was injecting. So I injected heroin for like 3 years, and I was miserable. And the environment now did not want me, the neighbors did not want me. So what happened is that this time I went to a friend of mine in South Nyanza. Before I went to this friend of mine, now the society did not want me, because the people in the community saw me as a useless person. Now I went to the dumping site at 42 Kibera. So these are the people who embraced me. And I was there for a while. But while there, I knew that I did not belong there, because I would sit with them, and these people were they had pity on me, because every other day I would come with a syringe and heroin and inject myself before them, and they would see me sleeping, because the drug, after injecting the drug, you have to sleep for a while, for 2 hours. So they told me that something is not right with you. Imagine, those guys were the ones telling me that something is not right with you. So I remembered what I learned in the rehabilitation, and I knew that I had to work on myself. So that is why I decided to go to my friend in South Nyanza. He is a pastor, and right now he's a bishop of Apostolic Ministries. I went to him and I told him that I need your prayers, and I need somewhere where I can get my serenity back. So I went to his place, and I stayed there for 4 months. But while there for 4 months, this time I did not go to a rehabilitation center. I did not use any kind of drug to suppress the withdrawal symptoms. There was no methadone for me. There was no painkiller. So I used that so that I could remember the pain that I felt. And while at his place, every day I would think of my situation and how I would make it better. So I did a soul searching inventory of myself. And while I was at his place, this is when the idea of coming back with a group to help other people who are going through what I was going through came to me. So I started writing down my notes and how I would go about the program and how I would go about forming of an organization. After 4 months, I came back. And after coming back, I went to the garbage site. And everyone was amazed that if you have come back like this, it means if we stop using alcohol, then we would be better. So we began having meetings with them. And this time it was COVID time. This was 2020, in the height of COVID-19. So we began having meetings. And the officers, there's a police station at the railway site. So at that time, there were no gatherings were allowed. But then the officers came and saw me there. They told me, no, we are going to give you permission. Only that you space out. If it is you speaking to these people, we know that now we will not have to chase you, but you're going to help us even bring change to this area. Fortunately, we sat down with them, and that is how I met members of our community-based organization, Akili Bomba. So we sat down and we realized that we have this one common strength, because everyone has gone through situations that when we put them under one umbrella, we call them mental health situations. I personally have been through addiction, I've been through suicidal ideation, depression. Some of them have been through GBV. Some of them have been through different mental health disorders. And some of them have been caregivers to people with mental health situations. So we have that common goal. And Akili Bomba was formed as a support group to people who needed somewhere to cling on. And while we would share our stories and testimonials, it would give us hope that at least we have come from a situation that is hopeless, and right now we have hope in our lives. So we called other people on board who are freshly or still fighting situations of addiction, depression. Some of them were even suicidal. And we came to realize that as time passed by, many of them came back with testimonials of having become better. And we realized that now we needed to sit down and register and start doing something for our community. Again, personally, I realized that I did not have good role models at the time I was growing up. And the role models I had are people I deemed and thought to be untouchable. But then these were wrong characters. And that is why, again, I thought about mentoring also young men and young women. And when we sat down, we came up with programs and a holistic approach on how we would tackle this mental health situation. So we thought about the family unit. And that is how we came up with a program called the family therapy. This is where maybe the child is an addict, or maybe the father is an alcoholic. So we look at the holistic approach on how we can get access to the kids, because them also they need therapy because of being affected by the alcoholism of the dad. We realize the wife too needs counseling, because she could end up maybe being a single mom, and that somehow could have a toll on her. So after sitting down and looking at the whole family therapy, now we had a little bit of bits in the family therapy. This one now, this is where now we formed a sitting where we get young people who share their stories and their challenges. This is called collective therapy. So we have collective therapy sessions on every Thursday. We have family therapy sessions on Tuesday. Now the kids too, of single moms and dysfunctional families, we usually have them on Saturdays. There is something we call activism. And in this activism, we sing with them, we talk to them, we share stories with them, we play with them, and that's where we come to realize, after giving them time to speak, what they go through on a daily basis. So personally, right now, I'm happy that I have a support group, being Akili Bomba, the group that we formed, because I've been through a series of rehabs, and after coming from rehabs, I relapsed every other time. It would take like a year or two, but then I would find myself in drugs. I would find myself in the same path of crime. But right now, having this support group of Akili Bomba, it has given me strength. Because when I see other people who have also gone through the same thing I have gone through, that's a power point, and it's embracing to me. Because every other time I have a problem, I do not share it with the wrong people. You know, there are many people who have finalized the act of suicide by going to share their problems maybe in bars or in the wrong panel. But now we have created the right panel where we can share our problems. So me, I would urge young people, as a parting shot, to share their problems, especially young boys. Most of the time we go through things that we do not. So if you speak, then you get help. But then if you do not speak about your problem, then it eats you up. And one day, after isolating yourself, you will find yourself having suicide ideation. Now Akili Bomba is there to help in suicide ideation. We have like 4 psychologists, and our services are free of charge. And we also have free services for people who come and sit down and speak about what they are going through in that collective therapy sessions. We visit families for free so that we may help people who have sons or daughters or even grandchildren who are addicts and do not know what they are going through. We know that when people use drugs, mostly it's because there are underlying issues in them. And now when we get to counsel you, or even we get to speak to you, we get to realize what happened maybe earlier in your life. So I would urge people to follow us at Akili Bomba CBO on Facebook. We also have a page on Facebook, Akili Bomba. We are on Instagram at Akili_Bomba. We are on YouTube at Projects Akili Bomba TV. Thank you very much. And I would tell you to speak out. Yeah.
Maybe you can give you the contacts.
Oh, so my contacts are 011 30 68 435. I would repeat 011 30 68 435. Asante sana.
Ungetaka kuongea challenges zenye mna face kama Akili Bomba?
Yeah, as Akili Bomba we have challenges. Number one, we lack some resources because we have 10 programs and we have like 7 projects. But then at the moment, only 3 of our programs are running and none of our project is running. Only the one that we have with a group called Walakolo. By the way, we have a success story where those street boys that I told you I used to live with, we came back and helped them make a self-help group. Right now they are doing recycling. Right now they are doing table banking. They have an organization and a self-help group called Walakolo Self-Help Group. You can also follow them on Facebook at Walakolo, 42 Walakolo Self-Help Group. Yeah. So mostly the challenges we are passing through are economical. Yeah, because we lack funding. We have not yet got a funding. But I know right now we are going to 2 years on the ground. And I know that with time we will get a funding. But we would urge the government too to look into such projects, because these are projects we are implementing for the young people in the community. And mostly they used to tell us that wewe ni kiongozi wa kesho. But right now we tell them that sisi ni viongozi sasa hivi. And everyone is a leader, first of all, of his own life. That is why we urge you to self-care, so that if you have sanity, even at home, you will give people peace of mind. But if you do not have sanity, even in the family unit, you will be a problem, and the people who are associated with you will be affected by that problem you have. Yeah.
Maybe you can tell us where you are located.
Our offices are in Jamhuri, a shopping center, but our activities are mainly focused in Kibra. We just got a little space in Jamhuri. Someone just gave us that little space. But then most of our activities are in Sarangombe, are in the 4, I would say, wards of Kibra. Yeah. So naweza ongelesha tu vijana kidogo, labda umewatch hiyo clip, na ninaweza kuambia kama kijana, most of the time we do not know what we are going through. Ukishafanya crime una feel guilty, mpaka unajiuliza ni nini imekufanya ama imekutuma kufika pale. And I will tell you that there is no bad person in this world, but only our character ndio zina need to we work on the character. So kitu ya maana, seek for help, because personally nimekueleza nilikuwa kwa crime na nimetumia dawa za kulevya na wenzangu wamededi. Sasa ninaumwa mahali niko. That is why nimebaki kama sauti yao, because nikikumbuka nimeona beste zangu wakichomwa, nimeona beste zangu wakipigwa risasi, na nitakueleza that nimewazika wengi na imekuwa uchungu. At first nilikuwa nafikiria nikiwa kama nimetumia drugs that labda hii ni movie ama nitakuja kuwaona tena. I assure you that those people have not come back. So life ni mara moja, and choices have consequences. Chagua kutengeneza maisha yako. Though inakaa ni ngumu kujaribu kutafuta na kuona ni nini unaweza fanya kwa life, but baadaye na kuashua itabea fruit na utaishi maisha ambayo inafaa uishi maishani. Kwa wazazi ninaweza waeleza tu, let us not be judgmental of our children. Your child might be off course. Mtoto wako anaweza kuwa ni jambazi, mtoto wako anaweza kuwa anatumia miadarati. Ukiambiwa kama mzazi, tafuta usaidizi kwa huyo mtoto wako, because ukipuuza na ukifikiria labda utamuombea tu na abadilike, ule mtoto kila siku anatoka kwa nyumba yako na anaenda kwa group mbaya. You never know what will happen to him outside. So after losing the kid is now when we begin to cry. So prevention is better than cure. Tutafute ushauri kwa psychologist yoyote when it comes to character development. And let us speak to other people, because unaweza kuongea na upate mtu mwenye alikuwa in the same situation na mtoto wake akasaidika. Si ni kweli? Mimi nashukuru sana kuwa na nyinyi. Asanteni sana.